Welcome to the Sens Spotlight Podcast, brought to you by the Sick Podcast Network. We are so lucky to be joined by the one and only Kyle Bukauskas with the best hair in the business of Sportsnet and 32 Thoughts. So stay tuned, guys. It's going to be a fun one, and let's get this show on the road. Let's hit it, Shane.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast. Send Spotlight.
Here's Alfredson bursts the speed, gets a shot, and we scored! Daniel Alfredson ends the game in overtime and sends the Ottawa Senators to the Stanley Cup Final for the first time in franchise history.
The sickest Ottawa Senators podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Go all the way with Betway and get a free bet up to $200 if your first bet loses. Scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the details section to create an account and redeem your welcome offer. Offer is only available for new customers. Terms and conditions apply. Offer not available in Ontario. Must be 18 plus. Please play responsibly. And we will be joined by Kyle Bukauskas. I can't wait for the show to start. He's been a good friend of mine here in Ottawa. Obviously, for people that don't know, he's not here as much anymore. But this should be a really fun podcast to talk all things Ottawa Senators and a little bit about 32 Thoughts as well. Welcome to the show, Kyle. How's it going? I know it's been a whirlwind summer for you, but are you missing Ottawa a little bit? These days.
Well, it's great to stay connected to it some way, shape, or form by talking to you, Alex. It's like new digs here now. We've got a new intro. It's new graphics, everything around you. You've got ad reads going in. That's why I left Ottawa. Listening you read the Betway line there about the offer notwithstanding in Ontario. That's why I had to get out of there.
I know. Was that something for you when you started with 32 Thoughts that you just all these ad reads? Like, obviously you have been doing that on Hockey Night in Canada and TV, but is it a bit different in like the podcast sphere? I know GMC is a big sponsor of yours and everything like that. Like, just reading that, like did that take a while for you?
They don't take up a ton of oxygen. What I appreciate, like, we're so grateful that GMC predates well before I came into the fold there. I believe like they're kind of the lone day one sponsor of now 32 Thoughts. And so it's not a super long read in terms of like there's the one line to get in at the top of the show and then towards the end of the first segment. So that sort of stuff, like, it wasn't overly bearing in that sense. And we don't have a lot of like live reads otherwise during the show. So from that standpoint, it hasn't been terribly different, but just the other ones where you've got to pre-record. We get an email saying, we've got a client and need you to read a 15-second script for them that's going to run wherever on a Sportsnet radio network, on another podcast. Like, I'm not entirely sure where it all ends up. But then all of a sudden now transitioning from broadcaster read to now ad read. Because if it's 15 seconds, you got to make sure it's 15 seconds. So that's taken a bit of time. That did not come naturally out of the gate, which I didn't really think about much when all of a sudden this came about. And then suddenly you're sitting in front of your computer screen trying to read these things. And it takes a bit of practice.
Is it weird for you, like, for people that maybe don't know you but behind the scenes, like I have for the past couple of years here in Ottawa, but like, you're pretty humble, you're not just, a big gloater or anything, like, with everything that you've done in your career. But I remember last year you had was it the ad with Sidney Crosby or something, or what was the thing with the sticks with Elliotte Friedman? Like, do you find that weird when you're kind of like in the middle of like these big ads for TV and stuff for Hockey Night and everything, when you're kind of the center of attention? Because I remember you're doing a couple ones. Maybe I'm forgetting exactly the details of it, but like, you're doing, like, you're the face of it rather than maybe, interviewing a player and, asking Connor McDavid how he can, win a Stanley Cup or something along those lines.
Yeah, I think I know which one you're referencing. Is it weird? I guess it is when you see it, I guess. All of a sudden it's there and it's like, well, I certainly, even that, I'm not looking, I don't go, well, now I'm the center of attention. It's all just part of look, Elliotte's done a wonderful job building up that 32 brand to what it is today.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's his baby. And myself and Dom Shermatti, like we're just along for the ride and trying to keep him happy and entertained as we go along here. So that's really how I look at it. Like it's a really really neat thing to kind of ride the coattails of here. So yeah, I'm not certainly the center of attention. And anyway, yeah, the promo stuff, I guess, is just it's part of the gig, I guess.
Yeah.
At this point there, and as I say, it's good that they're prioritizing. Like you think of something like that, and how much work he's put into it. That Sportsnet's going. We got to make sure that we're doing our part to getting that out there and helping grow the reach, which is already really impressive thanks to Frege.
I'm curious for you. Like, I know you knew Frege before you started working together, but what's it been like working with him? And has there been something that you maybe learned about him that maybe you didn't know about him before you were kind of together all the time and doing shows together?
I think it's probably more so just on the personal side, like just some of the conversations you have naturally when we're on the road together, like just getting to know a little bit more about him. On the work front, you certainly have had an understanding just being at enough events or covering the same games over the years of just that whole idea that he's always on. The mind often is churning. And like there's a lot of times where whether we're getting ready to record or maybe we're at the rink together and I'll start saying something to him and there's no response. And I look and he's not even like on his phone, but I just know he's in like that thinking mode. And like, yeah. And he jokes like when he gets into those type of situations, like someone could introduce him to the Pope in that moment. And he just like, it would not even register in his brain. Right. But that's what makes his mind brilliant. So seeing that on a more regular basis is kind of neat. Like I always knew like the guy could grind, like that's not a question. And I guess, it's just more so you see, really how it's all put together on the podcast side of things. Listening to it over the years, you kind of got a sense of, okay, wow, like they got together late to talk about this because that just happened and all that. But just how sporadic the schedule can be on recording days and how his mind works. Like I really appreciate his dedication to have a high standard each and every episode that we put out. We don't always hit that. Oftentimes that's my doing, not his, not Dom's. But I just think like in this business, and I could probably transcend into others too. Like I find you can often get locked into like what is the term was explained to me and it stuck with me over the years is like the good job syndrome, right? Where like you just get through something and it's like, oh, good job. I watched the movie Whiplash.
Okay.
I know it's a bit old now. It's probably over 10 years old.
Sounds right.
Yeah. With J.K. Simmons and oh gosh, who's the guy from?
Teller?
Yes, Miles Teller, a young Miles Teller. Yeah. Incredible movie, right? Like obviously it was, it was up for a lot of awards when it first came out. And the one line that J.K. Simmons' character has at one point in the movie, I don't have it verbatim, but just like two of the most dangerous words in the English language is good job. Now I'm sure someone looked at it, well, that's a little extreme, but I totally understand the meaning behind that. And so I think I love that mindset that clearly, I mean, Elliotte thinks that way. I know Dom thinks that way when he puts the shows together. And there's just always that. When I do like my television stuff, like that's kind of how I look at it. Like you never want to get complacent in what you're doing and get into, somewhat of a routine of just the similar types of storytellings week in and week out. So being in an environment like that, where there's a constant demand, not only from us, but also with the audience, like when they listen to it, they want it to be as up to date as possible. It creates a lot of work, a lot of weird hours because of it, but it is very rewarding on the other side when you're like, okay, put a lot into it and hopefully the listeners appreciate it and allow us to keep coming back into their earbuds.
What I would always just really admire from you, Kyle, is we'd sit beside each other at Sens games and you'd have your laptop out there and you'd be watching 2 or 3 games, always the Leafs because that was typically the games that you're covering. And then you're like sifting through the Athletic, sportsnet.ca for like everything to prepare for your podcast. The game ends at 10 and then you're off to record. And I'm curious for you, like, how do you consume, like, I would ask Elliotte the same thing, like, how do you consume so much hockey and knowledge all at once and like have, family, everything? Like, how do you manage it all?
Well, I'm about to relearn how to do that now. Of course, we've got a little one in our lives, and I really want to make sure that there's a lot of time when I am home to be present with him and my wife and stuff and our dog. I don't want to lose sight of that, but also I can't shortchange the prep and the work too of what we do each and every week. So that's something now. Like I was fortunate in the summer that yes, we had a lot going on, but at least there wasn't much in the way of work. Usually July, August is very quiet, thankfully. So we can just focus on the family side of things. That was great. And now, like the balance is starting to shift a bit in terms of priorities and the different directions I get pulled in as work picks back up again. So I got to figure that out. But I think with time that I'm not the first person to work in this business and now start a family. It can be done. I know that, but you just got to go through it. So I guess, how do I consume? I mean, I try to watch, I try to block out time to read. And then the only thing is, like, the one thing I'm not great at is to at least be consistent in that, in terms of, okay, this is the time of day where I prioritize this. Like I'm a little more sporadic, which I wish I was better at. And I think it's still a learning curve for me. I will say the one benefit, of course, there's a lot for us on the personal side about being out west, but just having, a 2-hour head start in terms of when games start at night. Because, I would try to stay up, off the nights and just catch the end of some of the later games that were on, out west across the NHL, a number of nights during the week. But as you know, and many that live out in the East know, like, geez, it's just, that's tough to do that constantly and then wake up at a decent time and have a productive day. Like it's you can't burn the candle at both ends all the time. So to have a bit more of a head start that way, I'm looking forward to seeing more of the later games each night on the NHL calendar. I guess my answer for you, Alex, is that I don't have it figured out yet because of the new variable in our lives, but that'll be the hallmark, I think, of my year personally, is trying to figure all that out.
How excited are you to watch the Sens this year? Maybe with, not as late in the day as maybe you were before and being at the CTC, but like, how excited are you just about this team? Because you left basically as soon as it seems like they're on this upswing.
Yeah, I mean, that was a real highlight, being able to cover the Battle of Ontario in the playoffs last year. And I was listening to Brady Tkachuk there the other day when you guys got a chance to speak with them, and him talking about the crowd. And of course, I mean, how many players and members of the staff have talked about it since the playoffs and ended. And it made me think of, so when Colorado won in 22, we were remarking about, I mean, obviously the atmosphere that was in that building. And it really felt like the core of that fan base and that came through, obviously, like with the Blink-182 ritual. Like it was a younger crowd, it was a crowd that had grown up with Gabe Landeskog and Nathan McKinnon. I mean, Cale Makar to a lesser extent, because he came a few years after that, but they had grown up with the core. And I think, you go back and, first of all, you see obviously the following online and the fan base as they've gotten more and more excited as things become more real in Ottawa. But just the feeling in the crowd there, right? Like some of the different creative chants that were going on in those home games during the playoffs. Like it's a fan base that they were teenagers when Brady was drafted in 2018, and now they're into their 20s, or they were 8 years old when Thomas Chabot came into the fold, and now they're, on the precipice of graduating high school. Like they've lived through such formative years of their lives, seeing these players come into the city, go through some very, very difficult years, and now you're getting the payoff. So that's part of the magic that I really have. As much as there's been a lot of lean years that I covered there in Ottawa, it's neat to see now the other side of it, because as much as this core is growing up together, I think there's kind of the new era of the Ottawa Senators fan that's going through much of the same thing. So that's been really neat to watch and to see where it's going to go. I think you look at where this team is at, the whole idea of everybody 1 year older. It was such big strides defensively in terms of what Travis Green was able to implement in a relatively short period in his first year as head coach, and to try to tackle the 5-on-5 scoring thing. There's a lot of reasons to be intrigued by what they could potentially do, and just who knows. Seems like for the first time in a little bit, there's some legit questions about, okay, well, what else is going on with the Atlantic Division beyond, of course, your heavyweights in Florida, and you got to think Tampa is going to be right there again too. Just a lot of curiosity around that the Atlantic to begin with, and Ottawa, with an opportunity to really make their mark after I would say a wildly successful season a year ago, and now a chance to push things a bit further.
I'm curious what you think of my take, Kyle, because just talking about the Atlantic, it is quite wide open. Obviously, Florida's a really good team, but they've made the Cup 3 years in a row. Mm-hmm. How amped are they going to be for the regular season? I don't know. They're still obviously a great team, but Tampa, I don't know if they're that much better. Toronto might be better as a playoff team, but obviously they're not making up for Mitch Marner. The Habs maybe could take a step, but they got, we maybe could talk about that later, but I don't know if they're that really good playoff caliber team yet. Am I crazy to think that this team should be eyeing trying to win the division or come at least in the top 3? Is that a realistic expectation, or am I drinking Travis Green's kind of booster juice or whatever that he's kind of feeding to us? Do you think that's a pretty realistic position for this team that is young, with Jake Sanderson, Tim Stutzle, Brady Tkachuk, and the whole core that should be in theory better next year?
Yeah, I mean, are they favored to win the division? I don't know if I go that far, but
maybe not favorite, but
should that be a target for them? I mean, absolutely. You think about, I don't mean to bring up Toronto deliberately. I understand I'm on an Ottawa Senators podcast, but you look at them over the course of the I was going to say Matthews Barner era. It's not that anymore, but the Matthews era, and making the playoffs every year, and how many really successful regular seasons that they had. Only up until last year did they actually win the division, and that again speaks to how tough the Atlantic has been for a lot of years. And now we'll see. I feel there's also been years in the past where it's what's going to be different about the Atlantic this year? And then you get going, and then the typical heavyweights separate themselves as they have been in years previous. But to your point about finishing in the top 3, absolutely. I mean, you look back to last year, they were a point out from finishing in the top 3. Yeah. That should absolutely be a realistic target for them. I think Montreal's got a chance to have a really good year. I like what they've done. And who they've got coming back. I think I'm not sure yet on Buffalo. Detroit's a wild card for me because we were in Italy a couple of weeks ago at the European media tour, and Lucas Raymond was one of the players that we talked to, and he said something really interesting. His point was look, it's a big year for the city, the organization. It's their centennial. He goes, there's going to be so many special nights along the way already this season. See Sergei Fedorov jersey retirement, amongst other things. He's going it's on ice, or it's on us to make it a special year even beyond that, with a chance to get back to the playoffs. You look at the Detroit Lions in town there. The Tigers are good again. The Pistons got into the play-in last year in the NBA. All of a sudden, in hockey town, it's the Wings that are the one of the big 4 that are still sitting there spinning their wheels, pardon the pun, and trying to get into the playoffs. So I think there's a lot of motivation there. They're an intriguing one to watch. John Gibson in the fold now, of course, in net. But for Ottawa, I think they should be a good team. We'll see when the puck drops. I like their center depth. The Shane Pinto situation is going to be a fascinating one. How they deploy him, it's obviously clear he is the most trusted center that they have right now in their stable to play the heaviest minutes in that regard. How much of an opportunity is he going to get to pop offensively for a whole host of reasons? This is a big year for him. So that dynamic is a really intriguing one. And I love the addition of Jordan Spence. We'll see how it all looks once they actually, break camp together and get playing games for real. But there's a lot of reasons to like legitimately feel like this should be a team that is in the fight for a top 3 spot in the Atlantic. And if things go exceptionally well, maybe you take a run at first into the division while you're at it.
The one player that kind of skyrocketed up last year, I mean, a lot of Sens players played really well last year, but the one that, literally, and I think just media attention wise, was Jake Sanderson. And obviously you were at Four Nations. He got to play in that. He had that big goal in the final, of course, same with Brady, which was kind of ironic. But to me, what is his ceiling? Like, I know I feel like I've asked you this a million times in the press box, but I think to me, his growth as a player to where he was at the end of the year, where he was so good defensively, was starting to, I think he was top 3 in points from a defenseman from like mid-January on. Like, if the offense gets there, everything else is set, right?
Yeah.
Like, and you look
at
it.
Now that's starting to come.
Yeah, exactly. And you have that top pairing, like elite defenseman. You have your top center. You have your big unicorn type of winger and Brady Tkachuk. The team's really deep. Like, I guess just circling around with Sanderson, like how important is it for him to take another step in, and how can he improve his game? Like, is it solely on the offensive side?
I think if you were to ask Jake Sanderson, I think there's constantly going to be all aspects of his game that he's going to want to get better at. Like, that's just how he's wired.
Yeah.
And actually, credit to you, Alex. Like, you were the first one to really shed light on his kind of arc of just last year alone, right? Like, where, as he said, at one point in the year, not initially making the USA roster for Four Nations, like, he was really down on himself. He said he wasn't enjoying, as he told you, wasn't enjoying hockey for a little bit, and then starts putting in the work with Jonathan Sigalet there, the skills coach. And suddenly things start to unlock in his mind and in his hands and his feet. And it's a completely different player coming out of the Christmas break. That launches him right into Four Nations, where he has, as you say, a great showing there, catapults him into just an incredible finish to the year, and he looked phenomenal in the playoffs. And I'm sure in a lot of people's eyes, he was the best defenseman on the ice in that series against Toronto. And now it's just, okay, he's on the precipice of arrival, and let's see where he takes it from here. So I don't even think it's a question of like how important it is that he takes the next step. I just, the way he goes about things, and we've spent time around him and talked to him, and you just see how his whole approach is to the game and his own abilities. It's just, I believe it's just going to be a foregone conclusion that there's going to be a next step that is going to be taken here. Like, I remember, I think his rookie year, asking DJ Smith about him, and how like the DJ Smith, how he talks, and anyway, it's just so good. He just was like, he goes, "Good liver, doesn't drink, wants to be the best," and I was like, wow. And like, you just see it now, like he's so dialed in on the health side of things. Like, the amount of conversations I had with him last year just about electrolytes and different things like that. Like, it was.
Did he tell you about the pants?
Fascinating.
Did he tell you about the recovery pants that he has? I don't fully understand.
Are they Normatex?
I think so. That sounds right. And he has some. He told me, like, you can't put it out there too much because I don't want other people to know. So I'm trying to, but
and here you are.
It's just like very dialed in. Well, I think it was more the specifics. I think there's a lot of recovery pants out there these days.
Okay.
Yeah, the guy is very dialed in, as you said. Do you think, like, it's interesting, like, you're talking about some of the conversations we had with him last year, but I remember him talking to me, and I had in one of my articles for Sportsnet that, like, he didn't think he'd ever win a Norris Trophy. Like, he's like, I don't think I'm going to get 90, 100 points. But the way he played at the second half of the year after working with Sigalet, the skills coach, was getting close. Like, do you think maybe not next season, but that he has that potential outside of maybe obviously the Hugheses and Cale Makars, that he can become in that Norris Trophy conversation?
Yeah, like Hughes and Makar, I think, like, they're in a different level, and I mean, that's no knock onto Jake Sanderson. No. Like, you can be an incredible player and not quite be like where they are. I mean, does he get there within the next few years? Like, we're still not even in a conversation where we're saying he's in his prime yet. Like, we're still on the very, very early days of that. which is, I think, very exciting for Sens fans when you think about it that way. So I think like he really, really admires what Zach Werenski does in Columbus. And I thought he, I think I had him one for the Norris this year. Did I? Anyway, he was 1 or 2. But just a really remarkable year that he had put together. And there, of course, common denominator is Elliotte. So he's watched a lot of video about Zach and how he goes about defending, but also just in terms of little things with his feet and with his hands for getting out of the zone, for walking the blue line to find an open lane to shoot. So there's a lot of that, just like the subtleties that maybe not pop in the same way that like a Cale Makar can move around the ice or the shiftiness of a Quinn Hughes, but still an ability to think that like as the team starts to get going a little better offensively at even strength, I think he's got a chance to be a real great driver to that. And so all of this to say, selfishly, I wish that he was going to wear the Canadian jersey at the Olympics in February. I know there's a story there when he was a teenager, but of course,
is there
dual citizen? Right?
I know he's a dual.
And at one point there was kind of a crossroads, and if things had worked out differently, he would have went somewhere instead of ending up at the U.S. program, and at that point now you're representing USA hockey. So I would have loved to see him in the red and white. But for Sens fans, at least they can enjoy him in Ottawa for a long while yet.
Maybe he can do the Lane Hudson thing and maybe switch to Canada. I don't know if you saw that. But,
So do we have Jeff on line 1 here? How does he feel? Yeah.
There you go. Maybe moving a little bit from one-star Senator to another, and Tim Stutzle, like I thought his overall play was the best he's ever played in terms of just a 200-foot, really good, responsible player that obviously drives play, and he's just dazzling with his skating and skills. But it was a down year in terms of goals for him. I was looking at his shooting percentage; it was still really high. It was almost 15%, and he just didn't shoot the puck enough. Like literally, it was the lowest of his career, I think, per game. In your mind, Kyle, is he closer to that guy who had that 90-point, almost 40 goals guy, or do you think he's more in that maybe 25, 30 goals with a bunch of assists and maybe not that same goal scorer that we saw earlier in his career?
I'm sure a lot of it will have to do with who he's playing with. Like there's been a lot of variables in that sense, I think, kind of over the years. Like that's played a role. I just think there was a little while there last year where I wondered, especially after the Dylan Cousins trade, where I thought, is it worth looking at moving him to the wing? Maybe he plays with Shane Pinto. Pinto moves up. He gets more of an offensive role. And then, he's got the opportunity that's going, I want to sign up here to continue playing long-term. And I'm not suggesting I know what Shane's thinking by any stretch, but I was thinking about that a little bit. And then the playoffs came and watched how, Tim in game 1 versus Toronto versus, game 6, he was really impressive. He was really impressive. I watched that and I thought, no, I think he can handle himself in the middle. Like, certainly as the games get harder and the amount of space even becomes lesser so on the ice. So I think there's always, like, you look at the skill of him, like there's always a chance that he could be back up into that 90 range. But I just view his whole approach to the game and as it's evolved, and really the whole team in terms of what's most important. And maybe it helps the fact that, he got long-term security early. So he's not chasing the big pop years for the next contract. Doesn't have to think about that just yet. Like this is solely about, being part of a team that goes further than where they were a year ago. I like the aggressiveness that he played with in the playoffs. The fact that, nothing seemed to intimidate him. It was like, you could tell like there was still lessons to be learned. Like how many times, so many times I can picture standing there at ice level, and I feel like, Oliver Ekman-Larsson was on the ice a bunch against him. I don't know if the actual numbers bear that out, but I can picture a number of examples in my mind where like Tim skating a million miles an hour down the wing, and the veteran defenseman was just like, doink with the stick and knock the puck away. So little things like that where it's like, okay, got to figure out how to get around that. Or what plan B is going to be when the obviously the defensive side of things, your opponent is so much more dialed in come the playoff time. But I think he continues to have a chance to be great. Like nothing that I saw last year or that Sens fans would have seen last year should give them pause for where he can continue to get to, because he again is another young guy that still got a lot of opportunity to ramp up into what you would truly define to be the best years, the prime years of him yet. Those are still to come.
I wonder if I'm not trying to equate these two players, but Mark Spector, our colleague at Sportsnet, had a great article talking to McDavid, and he's talking about how he wants to score more and kind of, be aggressive in that sense. And I think that should be the same philosophy for Timmy this year, where it's like, obviously he's an amazing playmaker. I think he said on record, like he's more of a pass first guy, but just shoot a little bit more, because there were so many times this season where he's in a great spot and he tries to make it like perfect. It's like, you have a great shot, like use it, and I wonder if it's almost that fine line a little bit from, okay, you can make those great passes, but just be a bit more like shoot the puck just 25% more, right? And I think if he can kind of put that all together like he did in the 90-point year, where I think he admittedly said that he was kind of cheating a little bit for offense, like not specifically, but he'd kind of run out of the zone more, use his pace, get on a 2-on-1, 3-on-2. So hopefully he can put it together. But I'm curious for you as someone that covers the league nationally, and obviously Brady Tkachuk has been someone that has so much fanfare and notoriety, and there's the many controversies last year with the Whopper comment by Ian Mendez and everything like that. But I'm curious, like, why do you think he's become so kind of almost like a superstar in this league? Obviously his brother's done well, but like, why do you think he gravitates so much to fans in Ottawa, but also around the league?
Well, I mean, first of all, he's delivered in big moments, right? Like, I think if USA wins that final of the Four Nations, I think there's a very good chance he's MVP of that tournament, and certainly deserving to be one. So that's one thing. He was, I thought, really good in the playoffs again. Like, he's just, like you think of the shot of him after they won Game 4 of like, we'll be back, like little things like that, and that suddenly catches on like wildfire. And I think most importantly, he's relatable. I was listening to you and Ian talk at a previous episode here of your show, and just the idea of the difference between like when Carlson was here versus now Brady. And I would say like Carlson is peak, like there was superstar power, like absolutely. But it was different. Like there was like, he was like an elite superstar that kind of felt more at arm's length, and it not like a knock on him, like as his fandom and popularity began to grow. I guess it is obviously what he was comfortable with, what the organization was comfortable with at the time. Like you didn't see him do as many different media type things as the years went on. And I think he was somebody that, liked his personal time, which is absolutely everybody's got the right to do that. But I just think that, the difference between that and now you got like Brady here, and there's videos of him like playing dodgeball at the Boys and Girls Club, and he loves to wear Crocs. Like there's just such a relatability if you're a Senators fan or if you're just a flat out hockey fan, that really endears him to the general mass of fandom. And then just as the stories keep stacking up of how well he treats people. And now, you get the push of being on the cover of NHL 26, like that's another feather in your cap. And that's, I think it's just how it grows that way, just in more of an organic way. Like you've got to be a good player in that echelon of in terms of ability. He is that. And now just the whole personality and likability side of things. There's just a very organic way that he goes about it, and nothing is fabricated, nothing is phony, and people can see through that stuff, and it's all real when you see him in front of the camera or away from it too.
I always find it interesting, like being in the halls of the CTC, and you'll always see like, it'll be little kids, or, they're bringing, people from the military or whatever. And you kind of see Brady kind of shepherd in, and he goes, says hi to 3-4 people. And I think it's those kind of moments where it's not just being relatable, which I think you're completely right about, but just kind of taking the time to always kind of greet people, be nice. Like there's, as you said, or I think Ian said it on the last show, just like there's not really anyone that says one bad thing about him, just as the person, right? And that goes a long way if you treat hundreds of thousands, etc. And just his relatability to the fans, like the famous video of him getting all jacked up. I think he scored against, was it the Rangers in that crazy overtime game with Claire Hanna?
Saturday
He's just like, let's go. And he just looks like a little kid who just scored the overtime winner in a Pee Wee tournament, right? So it's pretty cool to see that here in Ottawa. I guess with the team itself, like we were talking about, that they could be on that trajectory to maybe make it to top, 3 in the Atlantic, hopefully, and maybe even better and win it. Who do you think's the X factor for this team heading into the season?
I still go back to Pinto. Like that's, to me, it's right now is like the most fascinating one to look at because of, going into a contract year. You can tell like a guy that would love to be in situations to, as I say, pop a little more offensively. He gets the invite to the USA orientation camp, which is great. But that's another, like just the league as a whole, I'm really fascinated to see as teams come out of the gate, like, because how many guys that are on the radar for their respective countries, and they know like there is no room for error in terms of having a sluggish start to the year. They need to start great because they want to have a chance to be in Milan. And suddenly now he's in that conversation, had a great world championship, wins gold with US there, and trying to build on the momentum here now in the fall. So what kind of role is he going to get? How much power play time, as you say, is he going to get? And so if things click the right way there, and as this team, starts to again figure out ways to unlock scoring at even strength a little more, how much of an impact is he going to have in all of that? I think he's got a chance to have a great one. You can tell he's someone that at times when things aren't going well, like it affects him. And I mean, gosh, who wouldn't it affect? But he went through like a real tough start to the year last year, was candid about it, but got through it. I thought had a good finish to the year. And now like this is another big opportunity for him. So all the motivating factors that I just laid out here, I mean, it could set the stage for a really good start to the year for him. And I'm just curious, deployment wise, how that all looks, and does one complement the other, hopefully.
Were you surprised that he made Team USA for like the camp roster or whatever it was called? Like, I didn't think he was going to make it, but not that he's a really good player.
It's the orientation camp, right? Like nothing's guaranteed for Milan.
No.
But it was quite clear to me, and I think to everybody, that how much USA Hockey was putting an importance on going to the World Championship, and that if you want to be considered for things like the Four Nations, like the Olympics, you need to prioritize going to represent our program at the Worlds. It can't just be as much of an afterthought as maybe it's been with USA Hockey in the past. So I think the fact that he's gone there, a couple of times now, right, and it showed well. I think that in terms of when it comes to Bill Guerin and how he's thinking, those sort of things stick with him.
It's interesting because he has had now 2 20-goal years, right? And his shooting percentage was really high last year. He had a lot of empty netters, which is always an interesting kind of thing to see when someone maybe pops off a little bit. But I think you're really right about the deployment of him, right? And he's in a contract year. He's in the Team USA. Like, there's a lot of different pathways where he has a sluggish start, and then it, drops his value, and then he gets more in his head, or the opposite, where he has this breakout, and then you're thinking to yourself, should he be on the wing, or should he supplant Cousins as number 2? Like, it's just interesting. I don't know what. I feel like he's a really good goal scorer. I do feel like he could always get close to 30 if one year he just played really well and got maybe more.
He's got a hell of a shot, I think. Yeah.
but his playmaking always doesn't feel like it catches up with everything else. Like, he's such a cerebral defensive player, and he's such a ace in the hole. Like, I think that's the thing with this team is their center depth is pretty ridiculous. Like, there's a couple teams, I can't think of them off the top of my head, but Ottawa must have one of the 4 or 5 best center, depth teams in the league. Like, there's not too many that are better.
Right. Yeah. Like they've certainly said this. So like if Stutzle can get in a situation where like more, I know he's had like good stretches, but more consistently, like he is a powerhouse in the faceoff dot. Like that's even more of a game changer. It makes them even more of a threat down the middle. But like, yeah, they're certainly putting themselves in a position to have a good start in that sense. When you look at their center depth, right? Like he went through the lean years of like, look at all this potential at center, but man, they're 20, 21 years old. Now you stack up enough years of experience, and as we've seen in other team situations, you start to enjoy the other side of the coin. It can be a pretty fun one.
I feel this podcast has been a bit too rosy, so I'm going to get a little bit more negative. Not too negative, Kyle, but I'm curious, like, what's your maybe area of concern for this team that you think, okay, like this, I'm unsure about, there's, depth on the wing or top 6 or their, defense, goaltending. Like, what's maybe one area of concern that you feel maybe will kind of to some degree hinge or affect how well or poorly this team does this season?
Yeah, I do believe we'll see a different Fabian Zetterlund. After going through the shock of being traded and now to just start at the same time as everybody else here in September. I think there's potential for a lot of good to come out of that. Got his new contract here. I just wonder, like, obviously they extended Linus Ullmark. He's going to be here for a while, and it's great that they got Merrilainen back in the fold here. I just like the health question for Ullmark.
I know.
I guess you can always look at, well, how many times? Well, if they stay healthy. But it's just there's a history, right? And for a lot of years in Boston, there was that tandem style setup with Jeremy Swayman, where he didn't play a ton of games. And then last year, the plan, of course, was to like, okay, now here's the opportunity to be like the bona fide number one guy to play the workload. And his body wouldn't allow him to do it. And was it a one-off? Is it going to be different this year? It'd be great if it is, and it's just less headache for the organization to have to deal with. But that's one thing that I'm wondering about there. Until you see it, you're just not entirely sure. Maybe
I'm too much of a Debbie Downer, but I mean, his playoffs were great. His playoff track record wasn't great. Wasn't great in Boston, and during the season, like he had that swoon in December where he was just unbeatable, right? He looked like prime Carey Price for a little bit, but he had these ebbs and flows where he was obviously way better than the past couple years in net where Ottawa was just atrocious. Like he brought them stable, capable. Yeah, exactly. Like he was good, but I don't know if he was great other than maybe 15 games last year, which, goaltending, it's fickle, right? But I'm curious about just him moving forward. Like he's getting more in his 30s. He has an injury history. Like that contract scares me a little bit. I'm not saying I'm like, it's going to be terrible or anything, but it's 4 more years into his mid 30s, which isn't the same for goaltenders, but I still think that's going to be interesting to see how he does this year with everything. And I think Merrilainen tracks to be really good, but if Ullmark's out for 20 games, like he was for a couple stretches there, who's your third goalie? Like you're kind of in a bit of a pickle.
Right. I mean, in a lot of ways, Merrilainen saved their season last year, right?
He did.
When you look at those critical stretch of games that he popped in for and did, remarkably well given the circumstances. And I will give, in fairness to Ullmark, talking to him about, obviously it was very different in playing behind how the Bruins played for a number of years. And then you come in here to Ottawa and it was still some growing pains with a new head coach and everything early on in the year. And just the ability to like mentally trust that guys are going to be in the right spots on the ice when it comes to coverage. He said that was like a big hurdle for him to get behind, where you're wondering, okay, is he going to be there? Like the difference between that and like I know that spot is taken care of by that defenseman or that forward, is like night and day, I think, for a goalie, as he explained it. So that was kind of, I think, sure played into maybe the early struggles on in the year. And then, as you say, coming out of that, great for that short stretch in December. And then the health issues started to take its toll in the second half of the year. I will say this, like, I think there's going to be a motivated Linus Ullmark here, right? Like, made it quite clear that he was not invited to go play for Sweden at the World Championships.
Yep.
We'll see what happens in terms of the Olympic conversation. He was there with Sweden at the Four Nations. For Senators fans, you're going, I hope he channels all of that the right way, and Ottawa's the beneficiary of it.
Yeah. I don't know how Senators fans will feel if he does go to the Olympics. Just shades of their past in 06 with Hasek, but knock on wood. But Kyle, thanks so much for taking the time and doing this. I just have one question before I let you go, because I know you're a connoisseur of the fine arts and everything. I'm curious what your thoughts were on the Sens third jersey, because I know you're like a bit of a jersey head to some degree, and I'm just curious.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I obviously haven't seen them in person yet. I don't. I guess I was hoping they were going to go for more of a black dominant as like the primary color. So I'll see. Like I'm giving it time to kind of warm up to me. I'll give it that.
Do you find the red is like a bit too light? Like, I feel like it's just a bit too not pink, but like if it was a darker red, I think I would have liked it a little bit more. It just feels a bit too. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know what the right word is. I don't know how
compared
to describe
to like the red
jerseys.
and the Centurion feathers, right?
Yeah. If
it's
it was
not
a
the same
darker
as
red, I
the
really think I would have liked it more.
I do like the sparkle of the gold and the trim in that. Like, that's a nice touch. And some of the other little details they worked in. But just that base color is just like, all right. But sometimes you've got to see the ensemble, right? Like, there's been a lot of years when you see like the Winter Classic or Stadium jerseys first come out and you're like, ugh. And then you actually see them in action as the pants that complement them and the gloves and the helmet. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I get it now. Yeah, no, that's actually pretty sharp. So I'll give it some time. How do they look in person?
I liked it.
Red,
it was a bit flashier. That I was like, oh, it really is the jersey that they leaked. What was it, like a month or two ago, where there was like a picture, and I was like, oh, they really did it. It's the same. It's pretty similar. But I like them. I think Chris Phillips should have a modeling career and keep doing it. But it was good to see him in it. But I liked it. I for me, it's more. I like that they're just. I mean, I think every team has a new third jersey, if I'm not mistaken, but I just like that they're bringing that back, because I found just the same two jerseys a bit repetitive, and I like a little bit of spice. My favorite was the black with the Parliament and everything from like 05, 06, 07. Like, that's what I grew up with, and those alternate Sens jerseys.
The Parliament on the shoulders?
Yeah. And Spezza scored that goal. I think it was against the Habs over Theodore when he like undressed everyone. And I was at that game, and it was just, it was perfection. Dean Brown on the call and everything. So, but yeah. Before I let you go, Kyle, is there anything you want to plug for 32 Thoughts? And thanks again so much for taking the time and coming on the show.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me. I think we're slowly getting, I shouldn't say slowly, we're about to ramp up here again. Latest episode dropped here on Friday, and we're going to Vegas next week for the Player Media Tour. And kind of from that point on, I think we're back to 2 episodes a week, as we usually are during the regular season. Monday and Friday drops, so we've arrived. It's a new season.
Well, good luck with everything and with the new kid, there. I hope you can sleep all right with the late nights and everything. But best of luck for the upcoming season, and thanks so much for doing this.
No problem. Thanks, Alex. Say hi to everybody there for me. Have a great year. We'll miss you guys.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Sens Spotlight on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.